So last week, like I said, we talked about credible sources and how to identify those credible sources. This week, we are looking at how we use those sources in our paper and how we give credit for those sources. So I'm going to give you guys this example. When you look at this red light mm, or red circle, or whatever you want to call it, more than likely the word stop came to mind in some way. Maybe you saw a stoplight or you saw a stop sign or whatever. Universally, red means stop. Green, universally, means go. But what if instead of having red and green and us just understanding what those are, what if you went somewhere and all of a sudden they threw a blue go sign into the mix? That would be really confusing. It could actually be detrimental. It could cause problems. I mean, think about traffic lights. If all of a sudden there was a blue light, but it meant go, most people wouldn't know what that meant. There are standard protocols for how our minds think and how we comprehend. In writing, we have standard protocols for using sources. It's for the same reason. It's so that there isn't confusion and so that we're all on the same page as to where the information came from and how it's being used. So when you are writing with sources, you must maintain a standardized protocol. We call this standardized protocol citing or using citations. Citations are a standardized format of stating a source has been used to create the content. Also, we use the verb to cite. The standardized format you must use will depend on the audience reading your writing. And by audience, usually when it comes to citations, what we're talking about is the field, the professional field. So maybe it's education, maybe it's medicine, maybe it's science, maybe it's English or creative writing, maybe it's IT, journalism. Those are the audiences we're talking about when we talk about how it what decides which citation protocol and format you must use. There are three primary standardized formats. There's MLA, APA, and Chicago. So starting from backwards forwards here, Chicago a lot of times is used in journalism and other published public outlets. APA is going to be used a lot in education and science fields. MLA is used in academia and a lot of your more creative liberal fields. This is an English class. MLA is the required standardized format for this class. We do not use APA, we do not use Chicago, we use only MLA. All right, so we're looking at MLA style. MLA requires two forms of citations for every single paper. And when I say requires two forms, that means one cannot exist without the other. They must both be present. First is in text, or you may have also heard this as parenthetical documentation. Second is the works cited. Again, these go hand in hand. One cannot exist without the other. If your essay has only a work cited and no in text or parenthetical documentation, it is not successful. It has not met the MLA requirement. All right. In text citations or parenthetical documentation occur at the actual point of content use. They are within the body of the essay. And I just pulled this little clipping from an essay online. But you can see that this is the body of the essay, and you can see that there are signal phrases, So, where they are mentioning the author or the book. So, for example, in his 1825 book, Nature and Reason Harmonized in the Practice of Husbandry, that's your signal phrase. John Lorraine begins his first chapter by stating that, then they quote, and then at the end, there's a parenthesis with a 1. More than likely, that is a page number. All right. Works cited citations are an in depth relisting of in text sources. This happens after the essay conclusion. Your works cited is its own page. So your essay ends, and then you need to create a new page after that final essay page and start your works cited. Your works cited is also alphabetized based on the author or whichever first element is necessary for that citation. If a source shows up in your works cited, but it does not show up cited within your text of the body of the essay, then it has not met the requirement and it's not being cited successfully. All right, again, in text and works cited are both required for correct MLA style. All right, so you might be thinking, I've used sources, so when do I cite? Were my sources actually necessary to cite? Are all of my sources necessary to cite? Maybe a paper only requires 2 or 3, to meet the paper requirement, but really you utilize sources from 5 or 6 during your research. So do you only put, the 2 or 3 that are required? Anytime you are using another's work to direct quote or paraphrase, you must cite. So a direct quote is exactly what it sounds like. That is where you take somebody else's exact words, you put the quotation marks around them, right? And you use their exact words as written or spoken. A paraphrase is where you take someone's thoughts, ideas, and words, and you use that information, but you use your own words to relay what that source said. A paraphrase is like if I read somewhere that, to quote, the exact words would be, the sky is blue during the day. So if I use those exact words as written, that would be a direct quote. Now, if I said, sometimes during the day, the sky can be blue, I just paraphrased the original source. When another's work is not cited, it is called plagiarism. And hopefully, this term is not new to you all. We obviously have a plagiarism policy for this class. I'm sure the entire campus has a plagiarism policy. But plagiarism is stealing. Just bottom line, it is stealing. It is theft. It is dishonest. It's bad character. And it's actually punishable. So we don't do that. We cite our sources to avoid this risk and so that we can stay honest, we can stay transparent. Because when we're talking about an argument or any kind of research, credibility and logic, right? So if we're taking someone else's information, their ideas, their thoughts, their words, their work, their images, if we're taking that and saying it's ours, we just lost any kind of credibility and any kind of logic. All right, so let's take a second here and just kind of quickly see some samples, and we'll do this together. Is a citation needed? Bread and eggs are staples in most American family kitchens. No, a citation is not needed. This content is acquired from the author's general knowledge. So, what we mean by that is if it is a just known fact, if if everyone knows grass is green, there's no citation needed if you happen to be reading a source and it prompted you to write about the grass being green, right? If it is common knowledge, you do not need to cite it. This also goes for if you had to say, Little Rock is the capital of Arkansas. Well, that's not information that needs to be cited. It is common knowledge. Right. According to the trade experts at wallstreet.com, purchasing stock is not a wise choice for someone saving to buy a house. Is a citation needed here? Yes, it is. This content is acquired from another's work and it's a direct quote. The information we're presenting is actually taken word for word from wallstreet.com and the author Doe. Purchasing stocks is not smart for those needing to save for a home. Is a citation needed here? Yes, it is. This content is acquired from another's work. Although it is not word for word, the direct intention and context of the information are used. So, this information was taken from wallstreet.com, authored by Doe, and maybe we didn't actually quote word for word what was saying. Maybe this kind of sums up one paragraph, but we are still taking that author's or that website's information and using it in our paper. So we need to make sure we give credit. Here's the tricky part. Standardized formatting changes, and it changes often. Sometimes it can change annually, every single year. So what we use are style guides. It's not reasonable to expect any writer, I don't care what your skill level is, it's not reasonable to expect that a writer just remember all of these rules off the top of their head or memorize these rules. I've been writing for almost 20 years and I still have to utilize style guides every single time I write in any kind of research that includes sources. So rely on these style guides. Do not rely on your memory. Do not rely on guessing. Rely on the style guides. That is why they are there. One of our style guides that you have access to is the library's MLA citation and format guide. And this is just a quick snippet from the website. The link to this area of the library is in that folder within our course materials. And then, of course, it's in this week's readings as well, since I copied them in both places. But what these style guides do is they show you period for period, word for word, exactly how you need to cite in terms of your works cited or in text. And it's broken down depending on what kind of source you have. So, is it a book? Is it a periodical? Is it a full website? Is it a YouTube video? Is it something from EBSCOhost or an academic journal? All of these different kinds of sources are cited differently. So again, use the style guide. Do not think you have to just know this.